Welcome to The Last Generation, the podcast where lived experience meets lasting change. I'm your host, Donna Simmons, author of Ashes to Flame, Transforming Trauma into Purpose, also a survivor, advocate, and truth teller. Welcome back to The Last Generation, Transforming Trauma into Purpose. If you've been listening for a while, you know that many of our episodes have zeroed in on childhood trauma and how those experiences show up in adulthood. Sometimes that happens decades later. We've explored the impact of neglect, abuse, and chaotic environments. We've pulled apart the way those experiences leave imprints in our nervous systems and our relationships. And today, I want to take us a step further. We're not just going to talk about trauma, we're going to talk about the mental health challenges that come after trauma has occurred. Challenges like anxiety, depression, panic attacks, hyperindependence, or burnout, and how those struggles are not dead ends, they're classrooms. Now, before we launch into this though, whether you are a first-time listener or have been following us for a while, I have an invitation for you. Hop on over to our Facebook page, The Last Generation Podcast Community, and click follow. And go to trauma2purpose.com to join our free community email list. As a member, you will begin receiving expanded conversations on all of our podcast topics and free admission to our virtual training sessions, both live and pre-recorded. You'll also get discounts on books and one-on-one coaching sessions, as well as some pretty cool apparel like t-shirts and cozy hoodies just in time for fall. Again, that's trauma2purpose.com. Go there and click on The Last Generation to sign up today. And now let's dive right in. Some of you may be familiar with the term complex PTSD, also known as CPTSD. For those who are not, unlike PTSD from a single event, complex PTSD forms after long-term repeated trauma, often beginning in childhood. It's what happens when the people who were supposed to protect you, parents, caregivers, teachers, those people may have been also a source of fear, neglect, or abuse. So instead of one big traumatic event, it's the drip, drip of years of unpredictability. CPTSD leaves people on high alert, sometimes drowning in shame, struggling with trust, and cycling through self-protection patterns that make intimacy difficult. If that sounds familiar, just know you are not broken. You're human, and your nervous system adapted to survive. We have an entire episode on CPTSD, so if you want a deeper dive into what it means, be sure to check that out. Today, I'll weave it in throughout because you can't talk about resilience without talking about how trauma rewires the brain and body. But here is where it gets exciting. The same survival patterns that make life so difficult for adults with CPTSD actually hold the keys for teaching kids how to build resilience. And that is where our Cultivating Resilience for Youth training series comes in. Because when we combine neuroscience, attachment, and practical strategies, we don't just survive, we learn how to pass safety forward. So let's start with this. Mental health struggles are not detours. They are data points. If you've ever lived with anxiety, you know what I'm talking about when I mention a racing heart, the thoughts that won't stop, the ways that your body feels completely hijacked. And if you've been depressed, you know the weight of hopelessness and how even brushing your teeth can feel like climbing a mountain. If you've ever lived with hyperindependence, you know what it feels like to keep everyone at arm's length because trusting feels too risky. So now add complex PTSD to that. For many of us, our struggles aren't random. They're survival adaptations. The hypervigilance, well, that's your nervous system saying, if I anticipate danger, maybe I can prevent it. Dissociation, that's your body saying, if I can't escape physically, I'll escape mentally. But here's the pivot in that. When kids see adults acknowledge those struggles and model coping in real time, that changes everything. Instead of slamming doors after a stressful day and pretending nothing happened, imagine pausing, breathing, and saying, that was hard. I got overwhelmed, and I'm going to take a minute to reset. Now that approach is resilience in action. In Cultivating Resilience for Youth, we teach that safety always precedes learning. Because when unpredictability is high, the brain's alarm systems, the amygdala, fires. Stress hormones flood the body. The prefrontal cortex, which is the logical brain, well, that just goes offline. And that's why kids and adults with CPTSD can't just calm down. But every time you model recovery, you give the child a predictive template. Their brain starts to expect that safety can follow stress. And that's resilience being wired into the nervous system. So your panic attacks, your shutdowns, those moments of overwhelm that you feel, those aren't failures. They're lessons in real-time resilience if you choose to name them and then recover out loud. Let's talk now about attachment theory, because if you want to understand both CPTSD and resilience, that's where it begins. Attachment theory says that the blueprint for how we view relationships, whether people can be trusted, whether the world feels safe, is written in our childhood. And there are 4 primary attachment styles. With secure attachment, kids learn, when I cry, someone comes, and when I'm scared, someone soothes me. Kids that get to experience that grow up knowing that stress can be shared and solved. And those are the kids that end up becoming adults who can ask for help. They can give love, and they can tolerate conflict. Now, avoidant attachment is where kids learn, when I show my needs, I'm rejected. And so they shut down. They may look independent, but inside they've given up on being cared for. And as adults, they may avoid closeness. They may resist comfort and pride themselves on self-sufficiency. Now, with ambivalent or anxious attachment, that's where kids learn, sometimes I matter, sometimes I don't. And these kids may become clingy, desperate for reassurance, but also fearful that it will disappear. And as adults, this shows up as jealousy, this fear of abandonment, or needing constant validation. And in disorganized attachment, and just so you know, this is the one I really want to highlight because it's so connected to CPTSD. Disorganized attachment happens when the caregiver is both the source of comfort and the source of fear. So imagine a child whose parent is sometimes nurturing, but other times terrifying. The child's brain is torn between 2 biological drives. I need you to survive, and you scare me, so I need to get away. And that push-pull creates confusion, fear, and chaos. In childhood, disorganized attachment often looks like sudden outburst, freezing, or clinging one minute and then rejecting comfort the next. In adulthood, it can look like self-sabotaging relationships, craving closeness, but then panicking when intimacy actually shows up, or even feeling constantly unsafe, even in loving environments. For adults with CPTSD, disorganized attachment is often at the core, and it's why love can feel unsafe and why intimacy feels like walking a tightrope, why sometimes we push away the very people we most want to hold close. But there is hope. Repair rewires us. So in the training that I've developed, we use the Rupture and Repair map, and it teaches 5 steps for this. So the first thing is we notice the rupture, we name the impact, and then we take responsibility, invite reconnection, and reinforce safety. But here's the secret. Repair only works if you connect first before attempting to solve. And the reason for that is because when the amygdala is firing, again, the logical brain is just offline. And this is even more true for kids and adults with a disorganized attachment because their alarms are hypersensitive. Logic bounces off, but the connection calms. So whether it's a child melting down at school or an adult partner triggered by a late text, the first step is always connection. Something along the lines of, I see you. I recognize that this is upsetting to you. I recognize that you have fear coming up. You matter to me. I'm here. Only once the body stands down can we begin to really problem solve. So that order, connect first, then solve, isn't just good practice. It is neuroscience. Hey, real quick, I've got something for you. If trust in your relationships has ever felt impossible, I know what it's like to want connection but feel scared to let anyone in. And that's why I created the Trust Blueprint. It's a trauma-informed guide to help you rebuild trust, set boundaries, and show up fully in your relationships. And this isn't just for you. Supportive partners will learn how to meet you where you are with patience, compassion, and understanding. Real healing doesn't happen alone. It happens together. The Trust Blueprint. Rebuild trust, reconnect with love, and start feeling safe again. Visit traumatopurpose.com and click on the Self-Paced Learning tab to learn more and get your download today.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
I'm always looking for ways to show my cat how much I love her. And with Fancy Feast Gems, I can pamper her whenever I want with a savory gravy on top of a gourmet mousse pâté. The pyramid shape makes serving simple, so all I have to do is peel and plate to make mealtime feel extra fancy. And with 2 entrees in every pack, it's easy to turn every day into the extraordinary. Fancy Feast Gems.
The brain itself is a prediction machine. For kids with trauma and for adults with CPTSD, that prediction machine is tuned to danger. So every missed routine, every sharp tone, every broken promise reinforces hypervigilance. And that is why predictability and co-regulation are the medicine. Now, in the Cultivating Resilience for Youth course, we teach the Child Stability Plan. And this is a very simple 1-page sheet that maps out routines and calming strategies and even early warning signs of distress. And I would like to invite you all to try this because everyone on the team of supporting a kid can use it. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a therapist, a caseworker. And the reason is because when adults are able to use the same words, the same routines, the same tone, the child's brain relaxes. It starts predicting safety instead of chaos. So think about this. Unpredictability activates the amygdala. But predictability strengthens the prefrontal cortex. So every time a child hears the same gentle phrase across environments, take a breath with me, instead of calm down, their brains wire for safety. And that is when there's co-regulation. A calm adult nervous system can literally reset a child's body. And that can also be seen in the co-regulation menu. So that is based on body-based cues like slow breathing and relational cues like warm eye contact, and then environmental cues like consistent lighting and transitions. But again, let's not forget about repair, because for a child with trauma or an adult with disorganized attachment, repair teaches something pretty revolutionary. Relationships can survive rupture. Safety can return after conflict. So we go from consistency to adding in that co-regulation to adding in that repair. And what do we get? Resilience. That's the formula. And this can also be used in our interpersonal relationships as well. And let's now take this a bit more personal. Because if you've lived with CPTSD like I have, then you've probably had moments where your nervous system completely took over. Maybe you panicked when someone didn't text you back. Maybe you shut down during a fight. Maybe you heard a tone of voice and felt 10 years old again. And when you're in an intimate partner situation and these things happen, if the other person also has their own trauma history, those behaviors can trigger things in them to respond in the same way. And that is why connection is so important. Being able to offer each other that reassurance. And when I say each other, whether that's your partner or your kids, offering that reassurance where someone can stand up and say, I know this is a challenging, stressful conversation. I am here for you. I want to be here for you. I love you, and I'm committed to working through this. Utilizing that connection-oriented approach helps to melt defensiveness, and it helps to get the conversation back on track and soothe the body so that you can begin stepping into true resolution. And here's the thing. Even if you have those struggles, they don't disqualify you from guiding kids. In fact, with self-reflection and a willingness to implement strategies that provide that self-soothing or that soothing with other people that are so important in your life, those struggles can actually qualify you to reach a deeper sense of security and promote that connection that's so important. Now, there's also a method that we teach that goes along with this, which is the name, frame, coach model. And you can get more information on this on our website, traumatopurpose.com. So starting off, we name what's happening, and then we frame it, and then we begin to coach it. So this may look something like, I see you're frustrated. And then going into the frame, changes can feel unfair when we don't expect them. They can feel scary. That's acknowledgement, right? And then moving into coaching, let's take a breath together and let's make a plan. So imagine now using that same framework on yourself if you're having a hard day for any reason, right? So this could look like naming it with, I feel panicked because my partner didn't text me back. And then adding in that frame. This is my nervous system remembering abandonment. It's not the reality right now. It's what my body remembers. And then adding in the coach. I can breathe. I can ground. and I can remind myself of truth. So this is a very simplistic example, but the aim is to show that when you model this out loud, kids see that big feelings aren't the end of the story, right? They're part of the process. And so there's another strategy that we can use as well, which is called the pause, plan, persist strategy. So with that, we stop, we make a plan, and we stick with it. And this can be gold for trauma survivors because our executive functioning, which is our ability to plan and persist, that often lags while our brains stay in that survival mode. But when kids see us practice these tools on ourselves, we begin to normalize growth for them. And we are showing them that resilience isn't about them avoiding pain. It's about moving through it with tools. And it also reinforces that whatever it is that they are going through inside with those big feelings, those big emotions, those big fears is okay. And it's part of what all of us experience. And this doesn't mean that we just lean into those hard emotions and we just stay there in a loop. No, we are talking about acknowledging it so that then we can move through it with tools, and building up that resilience is what helps to keep us unstuck and to recover quicker when hard things arise. Now, here are 3 tools that you can use from that model that I talked about, the Cultivating Resilience for Youth. These are 3 things that you can begin using today and see if they start making a difference for you. The first, name your emotions out loud. Model regulation for your kids, for your partner. It's okay to say, hey, I'm anxious. I'm going to go pause and breathe. And that is showing kids that emotions are signals, not shame. The second tool that you can begin using today is to anchor safety with rituals. Using consistent routines like morning greetings, bedtime rituals, weekly check-ins, those rituals rewire the brain for predictability. And then the third is, again, repairing through connection first. So use that rupture and repair model. When we talk about, when I raised my voice, that may have felt scary. That wasn't your fault. You are safe with me. If you can have that moment of clarity around a response that you may have had, you're forging that connection. And after you have forged that connection, you can move into the solutions. And for kids with trauma, and again, adults with disorganized attachment, these tools aren't optional. They're life-changing if you will let them be. So as we close out this episode, here's the takeaway. Resilience is not built by avoiding struggle. It's built in how we move through it. For those of us with complex PTSD and disorganized attachment, our nervous systems may always be sensitive, but that doesn't make us broken. It makes us fluent in survival. And when we turn that fluency into teaching, it becomes a gift for the next generation. Our kids don't need perfect adults. They need present ones. They need us to model regulation, repair, and recovery. And again, if you want to go deeper with this, check out our earlier episode on CPTSD and explore our Cultivating Resilience for Youth training series. Again, go to traumatopurpose.com to sign up for our email list to get first invite on attending this free series. And also check out our Facebook page to join in the conversation. This is where neuroscience, attachment, and relational practice can come together to give us real tools for raising a generation of safety and strength. And this is just the beginning. In our upcoming educational sessions, we're going to keep taking this even deeper into the science of resilience, executive functioning, and how we break cycles of trauma to build cycles of safety. Thank you for listening, friends. Let's continue to rise together. You've been listening to The Last Generation, Transforming Trauma into Purpose. For more resources, visit traumatopurpose.com. If this episode resonated with you, consider leaving a review and joining the community online. Subscribe, and let's transform together.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.